Another episode of Product Lab today, and I'm pretty stinking stoked.
Yeah.
Before we do it,
Yeah.
I see the floodgates are already coming in. A lot of shady folks joining us as participants, and obviously
Yep.
really appreciate everybody coming to hang with us. Before we get into the nonsense, I'll let you know this was a month, and when I say a month, there's sometimes that we have like R&D where it's like, okay, this is the type of R&D that is great for like hypotheses, but the results aren't always there. We had enough stuff. We actually struggled today to be able to figure out what was enough for this episode and what has to carry over to the next episode. So I'm pretty darn happy with the overall kind of flavor, and we'll be doing a lot to share some of that behind the scenes tradecraft. Before we go into it, I'm hanging out today in lovely Jacksonville, Florida. Just came off the road doing some travel. Going to be in the LA area in a couple weeks for anybody who's going to be out there. If you are, hit me up or let me know. And it looks like I've got some other Floridians, some Florida people. Kevin, I got to know. I'm at like 70, 75, Fahrenheit today. What are you doing in the weather?
Oh yeah.
Chris, I heard Maryland's starting to finally like get out of like the freezing and you've had some warm days. Are you up in the 60s, 70s
Yeah.
yet or?
I think today is supposed to be like in the 60s, but this weekend's supposed to hit almost 80. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
Oh, nice. We got some Regina. Sounds like it rhymes with fun. Los Angeles in the 60s, looking good. All right. All right. Well, it looks like a lot of people are out of winter. So winter is not coming. And it seems like, Chris, we're moving right in the seasons. But today's episode, all about shifting left. If anybody's good, we're just go into some of these things fairly casual. The reason for it is this isn't supposed to be a polished show. Some of the things we're going to look just like the feedback we already got started of like where you're at. And I'm loving to see I haven't seen a single degree under 60. Oh, there it goes. Doug ruined me. 56 in Columbus, Ohio. I was gonna celebrate the
Where
warm weather, but we're almost
where's the Canadian folks? It's probably like 12 degrees there.
I mean, it's in Celsius, so it's impossible to convert. Us Americans just
Yeah,
don't know
right.
how
Good
that
point.
works. So, we'll just assume that it's over 60. Oh no. All right, let's get going. And obviously, huge thanks for everybody hanging with us. Part of shifting left, and what's funny about this is there was a lot of questions of how this is going to work out. I might have even typed this main title here about 2 seconds before this. So let me reiterate today's episode is about bringing response and detection and prevention further to the left. It shouldn't be confused with shitting left, which is a whole different typo. As last month, we pretty much had a whole episode of what's coming out the lab. A lot of people forget different vendors allocate their budgets differently. I've seen some vendors that the actual amount of salespeople tripled the amount of engineers. We're about a 500 employee or teammate company, and we're about 200 between actual development, the research side of the house all the way to the threat research and SOC. So we're a little bit different. And the only reason I'm sharing that here is we're starting to realize with having four products, we can't always keep up within a 1 hour show. So we're going to try to highlight some of the cooler research that was successful while sprinkling in some of the failure too. Keeping that going, Chris, do you mind? There's a couple places straight out of the lab that I liked for ITDR. Do you want to cover these real quick?
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it. So we've been talking about rogue apps for a little while. We've given some hints to it. We talked a little bit about it, I think last month. We said, hey, it's out there, people are using it. We wanted to show some results of like, look, here's how many, signals we are finding with it. And, on the one hand, that's bad because that means like people have like bad apps in their Entra environment. On the other hand, it's good because we're finding it and we're helping them get it cleaned up. So you can see here like the numbers are on the rise for the things we are detecting. If you jump to the next page, we get a little bit of the UI on the next slide here. There we go. So you can see there's some examples of like an application where the name was just a bunch of periods. That probably is bad. These are the types of things that we see. I don't know how somebody installs that, but hey, it got there. It is what it is. And then if you jump to the next one, we got an example of the types of reports we send when we do find these.
Ooh, Chris, I said that. I don't know if I actually included that sucker. Let me jump out of here and
Oh,
jump back in, since this is where I was literally correcting the typo.
gotcha.
Here you go. Here's your picture you were looking
There we
for.
go. Yeah, that's what we were looking for. Yep.
For those of
There
you
it is.
not aware, like some of these apps, especially with rogue apps, it's so familiar that we're used to thinking about applications on an endpoint. And if you think about your applications on the endpoint, some of them run as just an unprivileged or a low privileged user, while others run a system, right? And although you do have power user groups and you have different Active Directory groups or entry groups that you might have permissions set to, the difference is with apps, especially within the Entra or M365 environment, there's so much more granular. There's all kinds of things you can allow, read of certain things, write of certain things. And what I'm coming to learn is not only, ooh, man, it seems like Chris, are you running into Robot Me? I'm looking at our chat. It looks like there's a lot of
No,
people saying, hey,
it seems fine to me, but there have definitely been some reports in here of people saying, "Hey, we got glitchy or frozen or whatever." So I
mm,
don't know what's going on with Zoom today.
gotcha. Well, we're gonna go jump into some back, and I'll try to restate this. But just if you think about, as I was, alluding, kind of self-interrupted there, cloud apps can be granular, and knowing what permissions you give to your cloud apps, it's important. And I'll be very frank, the only thing that's kind of maybe more productive or maybe production interrupting is sometimes when you have an under permissive app as well. I've actually read nonstop about where you get an app, you deploy it out, and then you find out your app doesn't have enough permissions to do the new thing the software developer wanted. So where I'm going with this is we've really been spending a lot of time not only with our own app, but understanding what applications exist out there within these Entra environments. And one thing that we, learned is just firsthand, there's a lot of apps that shouldn't be there. A lot of things that, for instance, claim to be testing, but maybe aren't. A lot of things that are just randomly named. And it turns out there's a lot of shady things going on that are either giving access, often just to one user's inbox, but giving the full keys to the castle. In some cases, we're actually seeing them be, providing access to the full tenant. So just want to warn everybody that this rogue apps problem, whether you use ITDR or not, it is a problem. And so you got to keep up on it, whether you're having, self-managing or having like a partner like us manage. So just as a
Yeah.
heads up, rogue apps are up. And
I
this is the type
think
of, go ahead,
I
Chris.
think last month we linked to Matt Kiley's open source tool that will like show you what apps are installed and it has some stuff in there that's like known bad. Um, but we will throw that in the show notes in case you didn't see it last time.
Yeah, love it, love it. And it looks like we're getting some feedback. People are already saying would love the ability to drill down from an organization page to get all apps installed. Neil, this whole thing is supposed to be interactive, so I'll make sure that Abby Joe is the UX, person over in the product team that actually lives on ITDR. So I'll make sure she knows, what you're kind of sharing of like, one central view to manage your multiple organizations to maybe better dive in and do some of that self-management, even just for some of the, the simple things maybe that are allowed to be in the environment. Shifting left, though, isn't just about detection response. And there was something here that as I started this, obviously I was on one as we started our conversation. I think most of us generally have seen this before. The idea is it's called the cyber defense matrix. Across the x-axis is the NIST pillars. Across the y-axis is different domains you can protect. And generally speaking, most folks have come to appreciate there's an imaginary line that exists between protect and detect. The idea behind it is things that happen before you have to detect it is generally referred to as left of boom. These are pre-incident. And generally speaking, and it's a little gray, but things that happen after protection to the detect, respond, and recover is to the right of boom. The reason I want to share this is a really great chart, but in real life, these columns really aren't to scale. It turns out there's a lot of stuff you can identify, protect, but detection is massive. And believe it or not, respond and recover are a little bit smaller. Those are generally much more well scoped. When you're having a problem, you know what you need to recover. And generally speaking, you know what actions need to be done in response. Yeah, there might be order, but the part I want to share is many people are sleeping on how broad the detection column actually is. And if I could say one part that kind of is getting me a little spicy is there's a lot of vendors who have advertised, whether it's EDR, MDR, ITDR, I don't know, SIMDR. Is that a word, Chris? I don't think it is. But they're arguing that like detection and response is largely commoditized. And to be very frank, from us who sit on top of millions of endpoints and see data at the scale bigger than even like Fortune 1, Walmart, the largest company in the world with 2.1 million employees, we have more endpoints under management than they do. I can tell you from the data that we see, there's a lot of opportunity here of to be able to take kind of detection where it's squarely in the middle and move it or shift it left. Hence the reason today's product lab is all about R&D to move things left. And I will say that there isn't tons of work to be done on protection or prevention. I really think actually an ounce of prevention is still worth a pound of cure. We just would be lying to ourselves if we think protection and prevention is perfect because it is just simply not. So, anyways, I hope that gives everybody the groundwork of why we're moving in here. And we wanted to tell you a little bit about what's going on in EDR. So I mentioned we're doing a lot of testing, a lot of R&D. One of the more fun ones we've done recently, does anybody remember our old school ransomware canaries? The whole idea was how do we put canaries on an endpoint that no matter what goes wrong, even if it goes to the extreme that you're encrypted, it turns out the one thing that's most important, especially as an IT department, whether you're an MSP, MSSP, or you're in-house, you have to be able to tell your boss or your client, hey, this is exactly what was impacted. I can tell you which user profiles and I can tell you which endpoints. We've done some pretty good R&D there, and in some cases it's failed. Like for instance, playing around bringing ransomware canaries and other different flavors of canaries onto different devices like network shares and things like that. So we're going to save some of that for next episode, but one of the places that we've actually found is some really fun research with the favicon or a favorite icon. Now, I'm curious for everybody that's hanging with us live, who's heard of a favorite icon? Anybody want to care to like throw it at me? What do you think it is? URL
URL
icon. I saw some folks throwing this around. Chris, you're, obviously web developer.
browser
What
tab icon. Yeah.
browser? Yeah. So what the hell are we
Yeah.
talking about? EDR and
Yeah.
browser tabs and everything else.
Yeah, I mean that's right. Like it is that icon that you see in your browser tab. This actually comes from like way back in the day when, like in your browser you would save your favorite websites and you would like, save them into and you'd get a drop down and you could choose which website you wanted to go to. This allowed you to put an icon there. And then once tabbed browsing was invented for those of us who've been on the internet a long time, there were no tabs. You just had like 1 million windows open. Then we got tabs with icons. So that's what we're looking at.
I appreciate you making me feel really freaking old there, Chris. Somebody the other day told me, "Do you remember when Notepad didn't have tabs?" And I was like, "Notepad has tabs now? I didn't even know that was the thing." Oh, terrible. So I think we got it, right? We've got this icon file that allows us to quickly identify in our sea of 12,000 icons and icon groups which browsers we're going to. Does anybody want to take a crack before I hit the next slide? How is this related to threat detection, let alone endpoint detection response? That's an awkward one. I'll give that pregnant
Yeah.
pause for just a second, but I will tell you, while we're giving people a chance to be able to work through here, back in the long, long ago, so this is like the aughts, a lot of the way people scanned the internet was Nmap. And Nmap is a great tool. It's still up to date. And Nmap is full of these Nmap scripting engine capabilities. And one of these scripting engine capabilities was designed that if you go out there, you could scrape all kinds of websites on the internet. And it turns out really crafty researchers in the early 2000s all the way to the late 2000s discovered that you can take a web page and actually map the favorite icon against the database of these icons of known web apps, and it's a really good way to fingerprint. So I want to give you some heads up of how this has been used recently because I'll get to that endpoint story in a second, and I'm loving the guesses. I'm going to actually read some of these guesses out here in a second. So here's a new place of research. Okay. This is the team by Validin. And the Validin team actually said, hey, we can actually use these favorite icon hashes since they're using roughly the same hashes over and over. We can find some impersonations of like threat actors, maybe. Are they trying to impersonate like a fake shady website, like maybe a OneDrive or a Google Drive or Gmail or whatever app you're using du jour? And one of my favorite ones that they actually found were they were creating cloned and fake AnyDesk websites. So these were like scammer landing pages. And if you notice, Validin tracks these icons, and I'll go back and forth of these websites, allowing you to find, again, similar websites, but they're not quite exactly what they're made out to be. And so if I go back to this example, my favorite one that they posted was, look at these scammers trying to get people to go to these AnyDesk, and they're not the real AnyDesk. They're going to updaterdrivers.com and other shady stuff, anydesk.world using weird top level domains. And they were getting people to download, obviously, malicious or tainted versions of AnyDesk, scam tools, etc. One more that I found just a month after this in 2024, the team Census. Census is kind of like a modern Nmap that scans the internet and all kinds of things all day, every day. A little bit more focused on kind of internet tech, or sorry, enterprise tech. Less of it we see kind of in the small enterprise mid-market, but definitely the big, large companies with massive SOCs tend to have licenses and subscriptions to Census. Just taking a look at what are people browsing. And notice they actually were able to find command and control instances by fingerprinting. Hey, the favorite icon they were using, we could map it to their web panel, their shady panel used for command and control. And so they found out they used that same icon and the same hash and were able to scan the internet and find other command and control instances of this info stealer. So pretty freaking neat, right? Of how forensics on something so obscure like a favorite icon would be used. So these are pretty dope. And some of you kind of got these right. Others were doing really good guesses like, oh, are we looking at code smuggling? And I'll tell you, people have definitely put
Mm,
malicious code in icons before,
yep.
definitely malware in icons that they use them as to unpack. But it turns out the Huntress team said, okay, everybody is doing this from the cloud, scanning the infrastructure and finding shady stuff. And I hope this allowed you to connect real quick. What if we look at an endpoint's browser data? And there is a database file for each of your browsers that stores what is the icon file. And what we've learned is we can often find the URL that people have visited versus the icon and the hash of the icon that they went to, and found out, you know what? Oftentimes the legit Microsoft favorite icon is being used for a website that is quite clearly not the legitimate website. So believe it or not, we're finding cases of finding people who are impacted by phishing proactively and moving and shifting detection and response to the left at the time of even just browsing. And we're not having to use DNS. We're not having to use all kinds of things that get in encrypted traffic. This is, again, using some really crazy browser data. So, Neil, I know you said that you have trust issues. I also thought this was pretty, legit, especially when somebody showed me this preview.doc.site. And I was like, oh, that looks malicious as hell. And it turned out, yeah, it was. And it just happened to be what helped confirm, not just VirusTotal, is this type of leading compromise. We started rolling this out and just scraping using your existing EDR agent, no extra cost, no extra upsell. And we started finding, does anybody recognize what type of host name this probably is? What would be prod LT for anybody out there that's in the system administrator side of the house? It's a product that no longer uses the word LT, but I'm pretty certain I know what type of server this is. Yeah, that's a LabTech server. Damn right, Jacob. So we started finding out. One, I'm not aware of many people that should be browsing the web from their servers. Crazier things happen. And what we're learning is these folks not only are browsing, they're sometimes checking their email or getting phished in other unique ways. And you can see all these crazy TLDs, right? but the actual domains themselves coming from Microsoft.com. And so this is one of those things that we ended up discovering, that domain age is actually one of the leading indicators. We've known it forever, but do you see how we've taken something as obscure as a favorite icon? And through good R&D, while I admitted we had some pretty big L's on some of our ransomware canary stuff that we'll share about this. Uh, sorry, chat is killing me, Chris. Did you see what Oscar just said?
Yeah, I saw. Yes,
For those
Reddit.
watching,
I
or
mean,
if
I
you're
check
watching this
Reddit from
recording,
everywhere.
Oscar just said,
So,
"You guys don't check Reddit from your domain controllers." Like, no, no, I try not to. That's a terrible idea. But you can see this additional telemetry instead of looking at the sea of DNS queries, being able to add one extra piece of, Chris, I think you usually call this contextual analysis, where you talk about websites alone are great but hard. But when you add the context of something as simple as they're reusing a URL icon or a favorite icon, that sometimes allows you to be able to find things earlier. Now, don't get me wrong. Shady you, shady me, shady Chris, we're just going to go and we're going to take that icon, we're going to upload it to our own website, we're going to change the hash a little bit, and we're going to get around some of the stuff. This is not to say it's bulletproof, but this shows the whole example of threat actors, right? Threat actors only have to be right once, defenders have to be right always. Actually, no. And it turns out when we found these cases and found these domains, we weren't just finding like this preview doc.site. It turns out when we found this one time on one partner, within a couple days, we actually found this same phishing campaign mass exploiting a couple dozen of our customers and partners. So this is that whole like herd immunity, that when we find one trade and have one bit of detection response, everybody in the entire community benefits. And it helps us learn things. Like I mentioned, sometimes domain age is the leading indicator. So I'll end here with just a little bit and let you know that we've started reaching out. Some of you are going to get really janky messages. If you get something from your technical account manager or your sales engineer, they're just making up for the fact that the R&D that we're showing you guys is so bleeding. We are manually sending out, like, it's kind of embarrassing, but that's the way we work, of like, yo, we're working on something so new, we're not even able to send incident reports for this yet. We're having to do this janky type one-off production lab tech, browsing to something shady. And we can't even tell people that yet. And we had to warn them, like, because you don't have ITDR. We don't even know if they actually put credentials. Maybe they just went to the website. So it's not perfect. But if you can't tell, these early notifications are already providing dividends. And the part that I would actually just double down on is we will get better, even to the point of when EDR sees this very early and ITDR can go back and forth and say, they might have browsed there, but ITDR knows they didn't give up their credential, or knows, for instance, that there was not a login. Or we can put hypervigilance. Now that we know a specific user may have input their credentials, we can actually tune the sensitivity of our algorithms and our scrutiny a little bit more. So it's just a long way of sharing with you all that, like, what we're doing here can be done at home. You could roll this yourself. Part of what we try to do at Huntress is providing you constantly new value without you having to pay for it. And this is one of those places that we got lucky. A couple quarters of R&D turned out to actually provide dividends. And this should be rolling out in a more general availability feature over the next quarter and change. So does anybody have questions about how this research works, or maybe any suggestions on stuff we might miss? Because I would love to get a little bit more of a dialogue going here, instead of like, I've presented some research, but I'm wondering, is
yeah.
any of you seeing stuff like this? Any of you thinking through how an incident like this maybe might be like interruptive? Maybe it doesn't have enough details? Because to be very frank, we don't got it all figured out yet.
Yeah. A
We're
couple
even
of people
getting some people.
suggested blocking new domains. DNS filter apparently has a category for that, of like domains that were just recently registered. You can just auto block them. Also, Defender can do this. So Defender for Endpoint has some hooks into some of the things. Now, I don't know if that works with just Edge, or if it also works with all of the other browsers. I haven't played around with that yet. So there are potentially ways to block that, which I think are kind of interesting.
Chris, I'm curious, for like a noob like me that's, I'm obviously technical, but I don't know the reality of blocking new domains in production. Has anybody had any? I mean, does that generally work? And I don't know. I imagine new is probably like 1 to 30 days is probably like new. And then you've got like less
Yeah.
new that's probably like 30 to 90. And then they age off. Don't get me wrong, threat actors can just cook their infrastructure a little bit longer, but it's still obviously finding stuff. How are you all running into it? Like, does this work in real life? Oh, Scott's
Yeah.
dropping some good stuff saying, it sort of works, pisses off our customers launching new websites for events. Ooh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, if you're using like a
Yeah.
new subdomain or trying to like have a form fill that only the people that go to this site should only be for that event.
It's got us a couple of times as we've tried to roll out new and different stuff to expand like our infrastructure. Like we added a CDN where we could like host a bunch of like images and JavaScript and all that kind of stuff. And when we launched it, we tried to switch over to it quickly, and then a bunch of people reported like, "Hey, I can't see any of the images here anymore." And once we dug in, we found like, oh, it was being blocked by this or that or the other stuff. So, yeah, not a perfect solution. It will definitely come up and cause issues in some cases, but I think for the most part, unless you are really kind of on that bleeding edge of stuff, if you're, most of the employees, the people that are using the websites are going to the same websites every day, probably not going to get them too much.
Nice. Okay, that's a good reality. So I hope that's the type of like, at least for me, I don't come to hear a vendor pitch. I come to hear what's working and what's not. I'll tell you some of the things that we're learning is, as I mentioned, can we evade this favorite icon? Yeah, we've evaded it 3 to 4 different ways. Will threat actors change? Yeah, some of them will. But what's beautiful is just like those folks, as I mentioned from the census blog, where a threat actor is using the same icon because they're, again, ransomware as a service, command and control as a service. We're able to exploit those cases where even if we don't know the domain, we know the icon is so unique to, for instance, that ransomware or C2. There's a lot of really powerful threat research. So if you find something of your own, please tag us, whether you're on social or whatever. We'll literally add it to the R&D, and your simple findings will benefit the entire community. That's just the way we roll on this. So Chris, I'm feeling pretty good. We're moving pretty decent on this. You've got some sim R&D, and since you're, leading sim from a research and development, you also just hired your first PM. Do you want to take the
Yep.
sim section? My voice is like giving out a little.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Sim section is it kind of an expansion on the similar kind of a topic. There was
Similar.
somebody similar. Somebody, commented earlier that hackers are lazy, and that is 100% true. And I'll show you an example of where this has kind of come back to get them. So we've been trying to figure out how we detect malicious workstations. So we see a lot of stuff because we've got like 3.5 million endpoints that are sending us data, and we're collecting events into the SIM from like a million or so. I think maybe just over a million different data sources. And overall, what we found is like attackers just reuse their stuff. They don't generate new IP addresses or domains. They don't create new virtual machines. They just keep using the same thing they have because it's set up and it's there and it's easy. So one case where we found this, we could detect this was RDP. So the remote desktop protocol, right? When you want to connect and remotely interact with a machine across the network, it's going to send a bunch of stuff, and you can do all kinds of stuff with like the mouse and the keyboard and clipboard and USB drives and all of that. Well, if we dig in a little bit, if we go to the next slide, we can actually see the whole connection setup of RDP is quite a lot. There's a lot of things going back and forth. But the one that's really interesting here is this connect in initial PDU. And the reason that's interesting is if we go to the next slide, one of the things that is contained in there is the client name, the name of the client computer. So when a computer connects over RDP, it says, hey, my machine name is X, whatever it happens to be, right? And that ends up going into the event log in Windows. It writes it out and says, hey, connection from this IP address, this machine name, all that kind of stuff, this user. And it turns out that we see attackers being bad across many customers. And so we see attacker doing something somewhere. We can then take and say, hey, this machine name, this is bad. And then suddenly we start to see it pop up in other places. So if you go to the next slide, we can see some examples of this where, we've got alerts to detect on, hey, this malicious workstation name has some stuff, and you can see like we had detected it previously, and SIM was there, triggered on this matching name. We also then were able to cross-reference EDR data and see that not only had that user connected, but they had also dumped credentials. We were able to isolate, lock the whole thing out. Everything went over really well. But yes, one of the ones that people love to use is Kali Linux. So Kali very helpfully passes over the name of the machine, which happens to be Kali. So that's super great. We
I mean,
know
we're
that's
laughing
bad.
about this here. I know we just were trolling about like using the same icon files, but if you think about OPSEC mistakes and making threat actors pay for it, it is. In Kali, it's literally a field. You could change the name that you connect with over RDP, but especially closer to script kiddies or some folks that are just using automation. When they don't change it, it's very obvious, named Callie. And when they do change it, but they reuse the same name over and over and over. I mean, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. That's what this is, right? The Uniform 7, Uniform Charlie, 0, Uniform
Yeah,
Sierra. This is
yeah,
a randomized name. Unfortunately, they're not randomizing it per incident. And it's really allowing us to kind of wreck. And if you notice this, what's great is like Defender is obviously turned off in this environment. It looks like we're sitting side by side, maybe CrowdStrike on this particular environment. But what's
yep,
really dope is all the tech and all the great technology. It's not going to find a legitimate RDP. It's using real credentials. There's nothing malicious for an antivirus to stop. And this is where that human component combined with great algorithms has to move the whole detection and response, shift it to the left.
right. And this is a great example of that because this is detecting malicious activity before they've done anything malicious, right? At this point, all they've done is connect over RDP to this machine. No commands have run yet, no nothing else.
Yep.
We've detected that a malicious attacker connected, and from there we can isolate the machine, we can lock all the stuff out. So in some cases, we are able to be fast enough and we were able to lock it out. In some cases, we get them very shortly after they've started to do some of their initial reconnaissance.
I mean, look at this,
But
Chris,
the
right
other
here,
cool
moving it
thing,
left, right? I've dumped now
yeah,
credentials at 1:03 a.m. Or could you have caught them at 12:45 a.m.? It's not a ton of time, but it turns
yeah,
out 18 minutes can be the difference of they have all your local saved credentials, especially if there's, a credential reuse or anything along those lines. Like this is what 18 minutes means. This is what shifting left quite literally means in this example.
yep. And this one was cool. I also wanted to highlight this because we were able to see the connection from another machine to a machine with Huntress on it, where we were capturing the event logs. But the machine where the attacker came from, even though it was within the network, because it had that private IP address, we didn't have Huntress installed there. So we were able to identify that activity originating from a machine we had never been on. We're able to notify the partner and also then say, hey, you might want to go and see if there are other machines that Huntress is also not on, where we don't have visibility into. So I thought this was a pretty cool example, and just plays into more of that, like how do we find stuff earlier before bad stuff has happened and hackers are lazy.
Turns out good OPSEC matters. All right, Chris. So we're flying through some of this stuff. I know you've done more on SIM. Detections are still coming. Is there anything you want to give? Because SAT kind of changes instead of us talking about detection response. It goes into more like shifting prevention left, which is why this is
Yeah,
generally
yeah,
titled. Is there anything else though you want to drop about SIM? Because you and I kind of cut some of these things out on purpose. We know we have enough episode
yeah.
or content for a whole nother episode next month.
Yeah, we've got some interesting stuff coming on SIM. We've expanded some of the available data sources to include other things that can send data to Splunk, like Cloudflare is one that fits into that bucket. So we use Cloudflare to both serve our CDN and to do some DDoS protection. And so we're able to capture our logs from there as well as other people. So more cool stuff there. If you have some system and you look and it says it can export logs to Splunk, it is highly likely that we will be able to capture those logs. And because they come in generally a JSON format, we can automatically parse them. We don't have to write new parsers for it, all that kind of stuff. So, some cool stuff there. We are working on some things.
You want to tease it
We
all, some of the
dropped it.
Sentinel One stuff? I know you've been having
Yeah,
some W's, but you've also had some like
yeah.
rough things that we've learned. You want to walk folks through it? I know we don't have visuals.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, so we teased the Sentinel One last time, but we've made a lot of progress on it. We've also learned some other things that we needed to figure out. We initially set it up and we're like, yeah, we'll just get activity logs in from here, and then we realized we needed to have a better way to kind of align the multi-tenancy within Sentinel One. So Sentinel One has an account, and then below the account, it has many sites. And the suggestion is that a site then refers to an end client if you're like a managed service provider, or if you're not a managed service provider and you're kind of like an enterprise client, site might actually refer to different buildings or offices or different parts of the company or whatever. But we needed to have a way to map those then to Huntress organizations. So it was kind of like a one-to-one mapping. We had to figure out some stuff. But I think we're pretty close now. We've got the ability to bring in the data. The last part is just making sure that it gets surfaced to the SOC, right? So that when Sentinel One does detect something on an endpoint, it goes to our SOC. If we've got other telemetry there, if we're collecting Windows events, if we've got EDR there, we can do some additional investigation, figure out what's there. But if not, we will at least look at it and say, does this look to be legit or not, and forward it on to you if it is. So, trying to help folks who are still on, long-term Sentinel One contracts. How do they make better use of it? How do they, balance Sentinel One and having Huntress, getting a SIM, getting ITDR, all these other things. So if you are one of those folks, definitely reach out because we are getting ready to start turning it on for more people.
Yeah, 110%. And a lot of folks have even been caught up like in a sales cycle where they're like, I know I can condense down to one single EDR now that I realize what we've got. This is part of the reason we're doing it. It's because of you all on both product labs and with meeting with like the account managers saying, hey, I've got these real problems. I don't need long term. I need to be able to have short term support. Or you know what? I want to have Huntress's 24/7 SOC because I'm just realizing having my best people work night shift is going to cause them to leave. So please, please, please keep up with that feedback. We aren't looking to service every antivirus. We've always been very complimentary of Microsoft Defender, very complimentary of Sentinel One and CrowdStrike, generally speaking. We've got a lot of data. We know who holds their own. We also know who falls below that line. If you know a partner or know somebody that is using that's something that's not in those three, get them on one of those three next gen AVs, et cetera, because my gosh, we can tell you that the gap is starting to widen and those three are hanging well. So glad we could support you on the S1 side of the house. All right. Chris, I wanted to get into the episode about, or this part about SAT, but I realized one of the things that might tee up better is a little bit of a walkthrough of how we got here. And then I know all of you have your own lives. I appreciate you even make time for us in these ridiculous product labs. And probably our most unhinged episode we ever had was this one called Human Spook the Shiz Out of Us. It was an October theme. But this episode took a turn for the South. I mean, I'm pretty sure we stopped calling people like users and humans. And by the end of this episode, we only referred to them as meat. That's your all idea. That's our customers' ideas. We were just using it, right?
Right.
But our biggest part we wanted to share with you is like, if you think about this love-hate relationship with end users, we know problem exists between keyboard and chair. It's been used and abused. And Chris had some pretty witty things here to say that generally just said of like, look, if we are going to enable productivity, while half of the domain can be hardened and tightened, whether it's endpoints, identities, data, etc., you can tighten it to the level of reasonability. But if productivity must be a thing, there must be an equal and opposite permissive environment to allow people to be productive. So the argument that we're starting to learn is securing users might actually have much better dividends, or more importantly, training users has a larger return on investment than even all the hardening that we love. Like I'm a geek. I'm never leaving our EDR, ITDR, SIM type products. That's what I live for. But I've come to learn that human preventable incidents are a problem. And so in this episode, if you haven't watched it, all of our stuff is on YouTube. They're ungated. Go out and take a look at them. We called out that there's some places we're seeing there's some very big problems, right? If every layer of security demands an equal and opposite path of least resistance, well, what did that mean for us? And one of the hypotheses that we threw out there was we need to help train people better. And so we know that once a month awareness training videos are okay. We know occasional micro training, trainings as needed, okay, but people don't want more training. We are seeing, for instance, though, an appetite for like, look, just like how antivirus became EDR, it appears in the enterprise, at least, security awareness training is on its way to becoming either human security posture management or human risk management. We don't know what the acronym is going to be, but it does appear to be changing, especially for like the small enterprises we work with. They are definitely starting to think this way. And it turns out people are asking for more real employee excitement through gamification. And I say real excitement because it can't be employee excitement that sounds like, ugh. It also needs more simulations. Like if you're only training with a phishing inbox and it only goes to your real world inbox, people are not being prepared for what real tradecraft looks like. And so we've been using all of this different feedback, whether it's queuing up micro trains, better interaction that when we see somebody do something silly on ITDR or get phished now off our endpoint, we should be able to automatically queue up episodes. But we're taking things a little bit further with this shifting left. But this is really on prevention. And to be very frank, we don't know if this is going to work. We think it's going to work. The feedback we've gotten so far is really good. So we're sharing with you all now some of our very first forays, and we know we're not going to get it perfect, but we could use some of your feedback literally live on this episode. And if any of you are liking what we're doing or want to help critique what we're doing, we could use your help by reaching out to support and getting signed up for some of this early stuff, because we're almost ready to start doing this in an extremely private, beta. And then we'll open up to the public people that, the public masses here soon. Chris, do you want to walk through a little bit of this?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've got the slides here, which is cool, but like maybe I'll just screen share and actually show you what it looks like.
Can
Like we
I
can
stop then my
can
screen
do it
share?
live.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
do it.
Let's do it live.
So
Very
for those of
inside
you who don't
edition.
realize, we're thinking our hypothesis is, what if we do an episode on unique training, whatever that topic du jour is for the month? And then what if halfway through the month you're actually tested on the result, not by answering silly, simple questions, but could we gamify, literally turn things into a competitive game and see if we can help people truly learn the tradecraft, not just memorizing episode answers. So, Chris, I'm going to stop screen sharing and turn it over to you, dude.
Yeah. I tried to screen share. It kicked me back, so let's see
I know
what
you're on
happens.
Linux, so let me know if you need me to click a URL or
I
something like
just
that.
screen shared earlier, which is okay. There we go. Now we're cooking. All right. So this is learn to think like a hacker, right? And this is about teaching you, hey, how do hackers do it? What are the things that they figure out, and how does that do stuff? And the thought process, like I was saying, is like if you understand how a hacker would do it, how somebody would social engineer you, you can better spot it. You can better understand what's available to them, when it could be a scam, when it could not be a scam, right? And so that's what this simulation is designed to kind of show you. And these are the things where we're talking about going beyond just your mail inbox, right? We're actually quite limited with the things we can do in your email inbox because rightfully so, folks like Microsoft and Google and whoever else are trying to block our stuff because it looks kind of malicious. So there's a lot of issues there. But when we do it in an environment like this, we can kind of code it up as however we want. So uh, this also has audio, which I'm going to turn off here. But the idea is like, here's the things that you're going to do. You're going to try to do this OSINT simulation. You're going to try to earn some points. There's a leaderboard. So all right, cool. So let's get into it. So like, what are we doing?
Chris, just like earlier, I don't know, just when we're switching some folks are claiming some bitrate stuttering and things along those lines. Is anybody else having a better
No,
time? I mean, clearly, Zoom
can't
client
see
is
chat
not having a good
currently.
day. We're just they're claiming better now. Not great.
Okay,
Bad as
all
soon
right,
as Chris started screen share. It's better. Oh, you know what?
weird.
Clearly the tubes today. Zoom is on one.
Yeah, there must be some bad stuff going on the internet.
Just keep it going. We'll make it. We'll
All
figure it
right,
out. And if it sucks, we'll provide the URL for others to be able to
yeah.
click around.
So here we're explaining to the users what is OSINT, how do attackers do it. Okay, it's like, okay, here's your mission, right? You're the hacker. This Professor Wade, he won a $5,000 grant, and you wanna get that money, right? Maybe you want to get some cool bling, maybe you need a new grill, whatever it happens to be. Like, we're not gonna shame you. So you wanna hack in and you wanna get that transferred to you instead of Professor Wade, right? So, okay, so we're going to give you this burner phone that you're going to call the IT department, and you got to try to successfully answer some of these security questions. So, well, how would you do that, right? So, okay. But oh, wait, before you continue, be careful because you can use your burner phone at any time, but if you don't have the right info and you can't answer the security questions, you're going to get rejected and you'll fail. So we better, start our mission. We've only got 5 minutes. And we'll skip that. But that's basically telling us more. But now we got this timer up here, right? We only got 5 minutes. It's counting down. We got our burner phone that we can use. But here's some sources of information, right? So I can click the IT knowledge base. And so I can come in here and I can see, what are the frequently asked questions that they're gonna be looking at, high school mascot, music artist, vacation, dog's name, date of birth, right? These are all things that I should probably figure out what to do, so I can go back and I can go to the university where Professor Wade works, and I can start to find out stuff like what's his email address, what's his phone number, who's his boss, right? When does he have class? Like all these kind of things, right? And I'm starting to learn some of these things, and I can do some research on the dark web, find some more stuff about emails and passwords.
Look at
Okay,
those
well,
passwords. I'm seeing a couple of them for this
yeah.
P Wade, right?
Yeah, clearly,
Mm.
Hawaii, Mahalo, Aloha Spirit. So there's some Hawaii vibes going on here, right? Okay. So now let's call, right? And it's like when should we call? Well, do we want to call right before he's about to
If you would have
teach?
taken some notes, Chris, your notes on the right would have been populated.
That's a good point. I should have added some notes. Not a great hacker, but we're gonna call anyway. Right. And so, like, you get this dialogue back and forth, and you can see, like, oh, what's your university email? And, like, okay, I remember that from my OSINT, so I can go with that one. And they're like, all right, cool, that's good. What's your dog's name? I have no idea what his dog's name is. Just guess one here. Tinkerbell, right?
Oh,
Oh,
you
I got it
got
right. Look at me. What floor do you work on? I actually know it was the fourth floor, but we're gonna go with floor two just to show you what happens. Right. And it's like, oh, that's not what we got. Like, we can't change your floor. Okay, well, like, who's your favorite band? I actually don't know. Let's guess here.
is that the band that did
Oh,
South
not
Park's intro?
yeah,
Primus? I think it is.
I think so. So they're saying again, you got that wrong. Where's your favorite destination? And like, remember there was that Hawaii theme. But let's say we didn't know that, so like we'll say France. So I don't know why the person on the other line is actually asking so many questions. I would have probably given up and been like, bro, you're not the guy. Get out of here. But he's gonna keep asking stuff. Oh no, they hung up on us. They didn't believe us, right? And like now. users are able to now like take that kind of experience and associate like how does it happen? Like how does the social engineering work? What are people trying to figure out? And if I'm the person who's answering the phone, who's on the IT desk, here's the things that I should start to be suspicious about. People not remembering what their favorite band is or their mascot or what floor of the building they work on, right? And so it gives that little insight. And we believe, and we don't have anything necessarily to like prove this yet, but our belief is if you understand how the attack works, you can better protect yourself from it and better understand when it's happening. And so these simulations are all about that, teaching you. This one's about OSINT. We've got one coming up about how to create a phishing email, and we're going to continue to make more of these. And we think
Chris,
these
do
are
you want
pretty
to
cool.
you want to show maybe the mock, and I'll give some talk track while you pull up that
Yeah,
phishing. The reason we showed you the OSINT simulation is you can imagine we're doing a ton of testing right now and saying, could a blue collar worker that just wants to go back to fucking, working on whatever it is, cars, reading meter, whatever that their core job is, this is a distraction. This should already tick somebody off and that, having to do more work. And so we're trying to figure out where this right level of engage and teach somebody. But let's be real, not everybody wants to become a hacker. And so we know we're going to have some W's. We've already gotten that feedback and some wins. We showed that very complex example because we're already mocking up some of the simulators for like, this is Figma. So this isn't actually production code.
yeah,
It's mock-ups
right.
that you can string this. We're playing with the much similar example, or sorry, simpler examples. We've already got really good feedback that these are going to be very easy for us to teach people. So, Chris, do you want to maybe walk through of like,
Yeah,
look, here's your AI and learn how to spearfish somebody? Much simpler game, but the
yeah,
overall idea is still pretty simple where we can go walk people through. It's a simple game where you can earn up to 500 points. We're actually trying to tie leaderboards not only to individuals, but even to teams. You could imagine, even within, if you're an MSP, can you actually have things to be able to celebrate your own customers? Can your customers, they won't know each other, but can you let them know how they performed as opposed to the other companies you managed? If you're in house, you can imagine this is one of those scenarios of like, I want to be able to actually get different departments rallying or even getting feedback from HR that they want to tie some of these instead of the whole like you failed your phishing simulation and you get fired. I still hear about that type of negative culture all over.
yeah,
We're trying to
yeah.
get these to the level of like, look, when you do better, can it be turned into positive rewards? Because it seems, based on our research, that when we actually train people to do better and proactive defenses, they actually produce better. Chris, did you, I know you just had that right up there. Did you show like how to make
Yeah.
the phishing email itself? I missed it.
I don't know. No, it's not fully connected. So it's like a Figma design, but there are some AI parts here. I can let's see, does this part work? So I don't know how far they are in this design. Some of the pieces don't fully connect, but dang.
So,
Yeah, I
and
don't know
James, while
where
he
I
pulls
don't
that up,
know how to
you
get
named
there.
it. Gamify these things and make it a competitive leaderboard within their organization. So, for those of you who aren't aware, we just released some of the first versions of leaderboards. The reason for it is it's still based on the old school episodes, the basic questions. They're still fun, they're great. But for instance, an episode doesn't always connect to a phishing simulation. What if your phishing simulation is about what the threat of using AI is, right? And disclosing information. And you don't have, and now you got a phishing simulation. Those don't connect those topics. So we're trying to be able to make sure not only do the episodes connect to the simulations, but all of it turn into an environment which is much more of a positive competition. We think, based on again, all the behavioral scientist type folks, things that we work with. And Chris, do you want to show your little chatbot here?
I don't think it's fully connected. Like, so I clicked some of these and they don't go anywhere yet. But like these are really just design mock-ups. They're not really coded out or anything. But this one looks pretty cool. Like this looks accurate or relatively accurate to what Outlook looks like. But this is something we could never do if we just like sent you a phishing email because we don't control Outlook and we can't put things in it. And there's so. I think going beyond some of that is pretty cool. So I'm excited to see where they take this, and to see how they include some of that AI stuff.
So, Chris, we're down to about the last 5 minutes, right? I'm looking through, we're getting feedback that says, can definitely see how this could provide better exposure. Can we use that simulation tool? Is it on the portal? If you all want to be invited of some of this, like I said, we're showing you things that are literally like mock-ups, UI, not even code behind it. Hit up support@huntress.com. We will quite literally get you into it. And if you're not, if you're just like somebody who isn't using SAT, abuse our trial. Like this type of stuff, you don't got to pay for it to be part of shaping the product. We like live for like working with the community. We know if we give this stuff out for free, if there's an actual problem, you'll come to us. And if there's not, that's cool too, right? It's part about like doing this together as a community. So, other stuff I'm seeing a lot of different ability to share. We've just started sharing more to managers, treating and awareness training that managers need to be better part of the loop. Whether that's like, shit, somebody hasn't done training, that's a basic one, but also the rewarding and the positivity. We really are trying to work with the behavioral science side of the house to figure out, okay, how can we get these folks to quit? I don't want to go after the favorite icon. If I can just help better reduce and not have to hunt the favorite icon, that would be a heck of a lot better than us having to build even crazier R&D tech to make it, further to the left. An ability to, yeah, name, yes, shame. Let's be real. Like all of us get wrecked, right? And maybe not all of us on this call, but collectively, all of our organizations get wrecked. Even Huntress, I'm certain we've had people at Huntress fished. I know for a fact we've had people
Yeah.
legitimately
Oh
fished
yeah.
because we had
Yep.
that case, Chris. Remember when one of our engineers, somebody actually tried to SIM swap them and
Yeah.
got them
Yep.
with their Verizon provider. So all kinds
Yeah.
of these nonsense. So team, again, I really appreciate you kind of hanging, working with us, etc. As we work through it. Chris, I don't know. Do you have any with just a couple minutes left? I was going to end and just show the last little like call to action type stuff of, we're going to be on the road quite a bit. I hope you all are
Yeah.
going to like Black Hat, DEF CON, stuff like that. Of course, we're going to be at RSA as
RSA.
well. RSA is
Yeah.
only what, a couple weeks away, right? Just under a month or maybe.
Yeah. A little less than a month.
So any shows by any chance that folks are on here that you all are going to, you want to make sure that we have some presence? Like, believe it or not, we make a lot of our decisions based on this group. So just taking a
PAX
look
8
here.
beyond.
Yep.
I don't think we can go to the PAX 8 event because we're not in the PAX 8 marketplace.
Yeah, I'm trying to work with them, trying to find a way. I literally just worked with PAX 8 leadership this week alone. Of course, we'll be at Wild West Hackin' Fest for sure.
Oh, yep, yep.
ASCII, yep, we've got some of that. DattoCon, we're actually working. We trying to we had a really productive meeting with Kaseya leadership last week, trying to figure out how we can be more collaborative, especially some of their leadership changing in and out. So trying our best to be at least at DattoCon Europe. So working on that to see
Oh,
what we can do. So Chris, we
build
had a
it.
lot of,
I haven't been to build it in a while, a couple years.
so
Oh,
Chris, while
Spice
we
World,
end on
that's a good
that,
one.
one of the favorite is giving out free fun stuff. So,
Yeah.
do you want to maybe pick and choose? And while I do that, I've got our lovely screen up about like, hey, if you're not abusing feedback.hunters.com to upvote your favorite ideas, or if anything in here, like I've taken a whole bunch of notes. If you have something that you think of after this, go either upvote it or go put your own idea. And we'd love to give away maybe some goodies.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Let me pull up the list so we don't pick the same people. That would not be good. Nope, that's we had to change out one of the things. We were giving out the mini solo stove, right? Um,
Did we finally run
that
out?
one, yeah, we ran out of those. So now we've got the Yeti, the big Yeti mug. Um, so let's see who's been active. Neil O'Sullivan been pretty active today. I feel like that's a good one.
Is it just one? You giving out two? How
Ah,
many you giving?
I was gonna say two. I don't know if you want to pick another one.
I saw Neil's stuff in there, but to be very frank, I'm just gonna go back and scroll. We had some folks earlier on, all kinds of interaction. Anybody claim that they need to be called on? Anybody just the first to say me? I like that cheap way. Me. Did anybody see Tyler Gibbs? That's on mine. Shows up first. Love me. Oh, woot. Love some free stuff. Swag for all. Spread the love. All right, Chris, you got to make the hard decision. I'm not doing it.
All right. Well, I mean, the first one to say me was Tyler Gibbs, so we'll go with that. But yeah, no, I mean, we like the feedback. We like to talk with people and kind of have a two-way conversation during these. So we always try to incentivize it by giving away stuff to people who participate. So
All
there
right,
you
for
go.
those ad hoc winners, just a reminder in case you haven't joined us before, send an email to swag@huntress.com. We're going to go give them the heads up right now to expect your two names.
Yep.
Chris, you got the names?
Yep.
On
I
that
saw them
note,
all already. Neil O'Sullivan and Tyler Gibbs.
a shit ton of you joined us for another awesome episode of Product Lab. So huge thanks from Chris and I. We'll be back next month with a ton more R&D, show you how we had some pretty good failures through this quarter, also some pretty good wins. So we'll see you in about a month's time, and we'll hopefully see you on the road sooner than that.
Yeah. Cool. See ya.
Bye, everyone.